I have been asked a serious question that deserves a serious answer. If the ego doesn't really exist and just fades out after death, how do we get ghosts? The Buddha teaches that there is no self. He who says that the soul is his self, and that the self is the thinker of our thoughts and the actor of our deeds, teaches a wrong doctrine which leads to confusion and darkness. On the other hand, the Buddha teaches that there is mind. He who understands by soul, mind, and says that mind exists, teaches the truth, which leads to clearness and enlightenment. There is one mind, mistakenly identified as an isolated individual soul, and this astral plane, or mind ocean, has no shore that can be found. With what science calls the singularity, vibration in all its forms created and sustains all that is. Life, energy circles and spirals, it flows and merges into compounds which eventually separate and dissolve, only to merge again and again. Because of the limitations to our senses, we experience a fraction of what exists around us, and as a result, reality cannot be experienced through those senses. The human ear, for instance, can only discern frequencies between 20 and 20,000 hertz. The range of human vision is 40 to 790 terahertz. Anything outside the range of these faculties is indiscernible, essentially invisible or inaudible. But at their essence, the forms are all the same. These clusters of energy, which are called forms, appear to us as distinct and separate entities. Nothing is permanent except the vibration, the energy itself. When the form dissolves, all that remains is the energy affected in its course by cause and effect, or the universally collective thoughts, words, and deeds of said forms. This incredibly complex web of karma results in a seemingly inexhaustible number of forms, some much more subtle than others. Some are discernible to our limited senses, some are not. These subtle energy constellates are charged with the karmic impressions of past forms: hate, love, anger, fear, etc. They are short-lived phenomena and soon dissipate. Having said that, and keeping in mind that as these elementals are much more impalpable, they are of the same essence as we. All that is lacking is the formation of an ego self. More complex aggregates who do form a rudimentary ego are still motivated almost entirely by karmic impressions, and can pose a threat to those who open themselves up to the astral through ill-conceived activities such as rituals or guided meditation, especially in conjunction with drugs. It is important for the serious spiritual aspirant to understand the nature of these entities. To do this, we must understand ourselves. Our story, our sojourn, begins with the untruth effectuated by the 5 gates of perception, our senses. As a babe, information enters those gates and focuses on pure consciousness, the life force. The data received eventually informs us of our identity and all information pertinent to that identity. An egocentric program is formed and imprinted temporarily upon consciousness. We learn our name, the faces of our parents, as well as experiences of pleasure and pain, everything needful in order to interact with our environment. This experience is real. The phenomena of consciousness is being experienced, although in a limited capacity. The reality of who and what we are is obscured by the very organs used to determine that reality. The information these 5 gates of perception, namely the ears, eyes, mouth, nose, and the sensation of touch, present to us is untrue, or incomplete, if untrue is too harsh a word. What we believe to be the self is an illusion. We begin under a false premise and gradually build our dwelling upon this faulty foundation. The result is, of course, an unstable house. If we use the phenomena of elementals or ghosts to bolster our belief in a continuance of self in some form, or an afterlife of self, then we are in spiritual error. Only through ignorance and delusion do men indulge in the dream that their souls are separate and self-existent entities. This form we are experiencing, with its artificially imprinted ego self, will dissipate, and all that will remain is the life energy itself, along with our contribution to the flow of cause and effect. Continue to study and contemplate the absolute sovereignty of cause and effect, of which the Shekinah has said, "This is the seed that I plant in plain sight, invisible in its simplicity, the truth that brings peace." And take comfort in the words of past masters. Since there is no self, there cannot be any afterlife of a self. Therefore, abandon all thoughts of self. But since there are deeds, and since deeds continue, be careful with your deeds. Do unto others as you would have done to you, for you will reap what you have sown. Endeavor to be a boon to creation rather than a detriment. The ego will tell you that if there is no afterlife, then why not satisfy your desire in this life? To that I say that only the person who plants a tree knowing he will never sit in its shade understands.